So we are seeing the biggest patch to multiplayer in the history of Warhammer 3. And I can explain it in just this one quick GIF right here. It is so beautiful. It's such a necessary change. This is going to change everything from here on out. I'm amazed at the capacity of CA to make meaningful change. And it's right here in front of us. It's just so beautiful. It's just amazing. But okay, no, seriously, this is the biggest patch that we have ever seen to the multiplayer in Warhammer 3. This is pages and pages and pages of wonderful, maybe horrible, but also just very exciting things that will completely change the face of the game. I just wanted to start. I'm not going to talk about Karanak, but what I want to say is that I'm going to try to go through this as quickly as possible because there are so many changes, and I'm going to try to talk about the things that I think are going to be the most impactful. And if I don't talk about it, it's either that it's not impactful or I completely forgot to talk about it. So definitely let me know which one it is. And yeah, let's jump into it. So Karanak, not going to talk about him because I think when new things like this come out, they can be impactful, they cannot be impactful, but it usually depends on the cost and the stats, and sometimes even the animations. So it's hard to know right now if this is going to be impactful. But what is very impactful is that Conquest mode is now added to the game. This was based on the land battle with capture points mod that Umaiz and a couple other people like Alferi and Gojira worked on. And they have been working so hard on this. They've had so many different sets of patches. And this should be really good for the game because I have had land battles where the opponent will have stock units and they'll hide them in different parts of the map when they start losing. That's so unfun, and that's so essential to playing land battles when there are no rules. So this mod, I played on it a little bit. I'm looking forward to playing on it more in the future. Changes that by forcing the points, forcing you to capture this point. But usually it's pretty slow, so it doesn't. You can still kite. You don't need to capture it right away. A lot of times people will just play it as a land battle and forget this ever exists. But what this does remove is the situations where you say, oh, this person was standing in the forest, so therefore I couldn't attack them. They broke the rule. They're too close to the white line. None of that works with this game mode. And so I'm really excited to see how it plays out. And for it to be added to the base game is just a really awesome sign that we'll see again and again this patch, that CA invested a lot of time in working closely with the community, taking community recommendations, taking some mods and some of the maps, and really integrating it into their changes. So this is like the first time that we've seen a lot of this happen, and it's definitely on a very, very large scale. So this is really exciting, and it shows that Creative Assembly is working hard to work with creators, and there might be more problems that happen because of this approach, or like this, or some of the maps might be not quite what people expected, but it's such a positive sign for a company that traditionally hasn't invested that much time into working with the community in multiplayer. So this is a really great sign, and I think this signals a lot of really great things to come for multiplayer. And so they added a ton of maps, and they added AI to the domination mode. Like, that's huge. That's something that's never been around before, and maybe will help people start getting into it. They changed how lords can no longer be unsummoned, which really change how things going forward. And this is probably one of the nicest usability fixes, where now if you move the reinforcement panel to a different position, it'll when you reopen it, it should remember where it goes, which has been quite a frustration for people who play multiplayer in domination specifically. These maps are another really interesting thing. We'll have to see what exactly they look like. So there's a little bit of concern with the Borderlow Landing was originally like a very symmetrical map, and then Creative Assembly has changed it so it looks a little less symmetrical, and they've given it some visual overhauls, and probably all of these maps have gotten little visual overhauls. And I think where exactly how playable these maps are is to be seen, but the fact that these have gotten added in, as I was saying earlier, is a really exciting direction of getting some of the maps added. And in the community on the Total Tavern map pack, there is about 45 maps that we consider to be competitive, and this is just 5 of those 45 maps getting added to the base game. So this opens like a new avenue that potentially they'll be able to do this again in the future with some of the other brilliant maps that the map making community has made. But big shout out to the community members who made these maps. These are by far some of my favorite maps. I love Gates of Ekrond. I love the aesthetics of it. And I love Celestial Lake, I love Borderlow Landing, I love Glade of the Evergreen, Road to Talipime. So it's amazing that these have gotten added. I'm really curious to see what these maps look like too. I think like the approach that Creative Assembly, I'm not interested in what Crossroads looks like, because it just looks like this. But Creative Assembly has a pretty different approach to making these maps than our map making community. So it'll be interesting to see with a little bit of external influence what they managed to come up with. And they talk about the map rotation, but just having like some of these in our quick battles makes it so much easier for us to just load into the quick battles and get some interesting new maps. Demons of Chaos, great change. But okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to the end of this list. So these are like the big news items. And then I'm going to go just straight to the end of and of course, the biggest change right here, where we can select, I never actually said what it was, that we can select the banners with a drop down instead of arrows. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to scroll all the way down to the end so that, so you can see this map is a little different than the one in the Total Tavern map pack. I'm going to scroll down to the end, and we're going to start there, and we'll go up, because some of the less impactful stuff is towards the top. These are all nice usability increases. This satisfies me because it was very confusing at first. So steam tanks can block 70% at the front. And yeah, so let's go to Wood Elves. Let's just... and one other really big change that I want to talk about before I talk about specific things is collisions, these stat changes. So this is the biggest potential to make or break this patch. These things could go really, really poorly, or they could go great. So I'm really curious to see. Basically, collisions are sort of, you can kind of see it as like a flat damage. Historically, it's been just sort of like a flat rate. A big thing smashes into a little thing, it gives it extra damage based on the relatives of their masses, kind of like the physics calculation itself. They're adding this to several large units, and their choice of large units in some places, basically this should make a really big impact. This should really make a really big impact. This should be felt pretty strongly. Similarly, I have no idea how the splash formula works, because I've known for a while that if you have a certain amount of splash, number of units that you splash, the damage is spread equally. But that should just mean that our damage should be kind of like the same amount. It's just split across targets. That doesn't seem to be the case based on what they're saying here, that if a damage is split, that it is a buff if the max splash targets are reduced. So there's some part of the calculation there that I don't understand, but this could be really, really big, especially in combining with collision attacks, because they're changing a fundamental way that some of these units are interacting. So this could massively increase the amount of damage or decrease the amount of damage that large entities do to smaller entities when they're fighting in melee. And also, this is really crazy. I don't know exactly what this is and what the modder here has done. I'd love to see these tests. But definitely post this in the comments if you do have these. But to have collision attack be based on the unit's weapon strength is something completely new. So what this could mean is that before, I'm pretty sure, so as I said before, that collision was just like a flat rate based on the relative masses and speeds of the big thing that's running into the small thing. And now with the weapon strength being included, we could see it scaling a large amount. So very high weapon strength, like let's say the single entity on a chariot could now be doing a lot of extra damage when it hits a unit. So it'd be really interesting to see. This could quote unquote fix chariots. It could just break them further. But it would be nice to see chariot play being a little bit more viable, because it's something that we haven't really been able to do much of in the game. So okay, that's all I need to say about the stats. I think these things warrant huge amounts of testing when the patch is live, but this could be really positive for the game. It could be fixing a lot of the single entities, or we could be making them super busted. So that's always fun, because whatever is going to happen, it's going to be something completely different. So yeah, so I wanted to now focus on changes for the factions, and I wanted to go really quickly into how I thought that whether or not these would be large or small units, and kind of just briefly talk about how these factions might be after. Wood Elves got a lot of like kind of small buffs that could still potentially do a lot. So for example, Orion got better. Sisters of Twilight, they got a lot more health, maybe 5, 7, 8%. But because their healing is based on 25% of their total health, it's a percentage based. This is quite a lot. Let's say that similarly, the Forest Dragon got health increases. In a lot of places, we see the lords getting cheaper, which maybe will make other lords more viable. I think that, again, is to be determined, like whether or not this is an impactful change for Ariel. And I think this is a good direction of trying to increase a little bit more diversity across the roster for things that haven't been used so much because they were just expensive. What we see probably the most impactful changes are the changes to the archers. So we see about a 10, 12, 13% buff here to Teepwood Scout's missile strength. Their base missile damage. So this probably, it'd be interesting to know how their AP ratio has changed. So we see kind of minor changes to their missile damage. The Swift Shiver Shards, that's a difficult thing to say, did get some calibration. I've been told it before that this unit underperforms, and it's not been clear exactly why. But it seems that this has been sort of fixed, and they're balanced a little bit, and they're little more AP, a little less base weapon. These are weapon damage, not missile. But maybe this means that they'll actually hit a little bit more frequently, which they hadn't been in the past. This is a pretty big change because going from 80 entities to 10 entities scales the amount of damage when the damage remains constant. And so going from 80 to 90 is over a 10%, 12% increase. So we see a lot of these like 10% increases in the missile units, which should be relatively nice, but maybe not incredibly impactful. What is incredibly impactful, besides the dragon changes and the sisters changes, is that well, this is helpful, not incredibly impactful, but this is very good. So now the Wild Hunters of Kurnos is an AP anti-large unit. They gave it extra anti-large, which means that it'll be it solves an issue that Wood Elves have, which is they have a pretty difficult time killing. Well, they don't have terribly different, but they don't have very effective answers for armored cav. So this is really going to nicely fit that niche. And then along with Great Stag Knights, which got a little bit of a buff, their cav game has just increased a lot. So the ability of Wild Riders, the Wild Hunter of Kurnos, it should be really strong. And then, yeah, the rest of it looks like, kind of improvements, but nothing like terribly huge. So in general, it seems like Wood Elves probably will go from, kind of a middle tier faction to maybe upper middle tier, and maybe even top tier in the hands of really strong players. So it'd be really interesting to see how Wood Elves evolve. There's not a lot. So going to Warriors of Chaos, there's not a lot in Warriors of Chaos. So we'll mostly skip over it. Mostly just some minor cost decreases, some changes to Chaos Knights, which are probably not impactful, some things from other factions, which we'll talk about later. So maybe Warriors of Chaos not winning a whole lot from this patch, but some of these things might be kind of nice. So, okay. Vampire Counts got a lot of buffs. They got so we got buffs like almost across a lot of their basic infantry, because we got, well, not basic infantry, but just above their chaff, their mid-tier infantry. So Can Wraiths, Crypt Ghouls, all got pretty reasonable buffs. Hex Wraiths got buffs. Black Knights got buffs. Direwolves got buffs. And Vargeist got nerf, which is probably nice. And then Terrorgeist got buffs, and Black Coach supposedly, again, so this was the first instance that we were talking about these max entities. A lot of these things got, so this could make the Black Coach utterly busted, or it could make no difference at all. So I'm interested to see. But yeah, so in general, these feel like really positive changes for Vampire Counts. I think that we're going to put Vampire Counts, also a buff for the Dragon Mounts. I think this will probably put Vampire Counts kind of in, solidly mid-tier, but they're definitely, I think, going to be playable now. And, I think these buffs might really encourage a lot of players to take them up again that hadn't played them in a while. Probably one of the biggest ones here, or at least one of the ones that maybe I'm pretty excited about, is that Coast got a lot of buffs. We have some buffs on the Necrofex, the Colossuses. We got the Terrorgeist buffs, so now Terrorgeists are bonus versus large and actually have pretty good stat profile. So this puts us at 70 melee attack with the bonus versus large. Pretty strong weapon damage. So it'll be interesting to watch that unit. And we got just minor buffs here, minor buffs here. This is really big because this is like such an essential unit in every Vampire Coast army. And for it to go from 300 to 250, you always bring kind of like the max deckhands mob. So this buff will be really helpful for just bringing more units in. Syrene's got a minor buff. Minor buff for the ROR. Handgunners got a little bit of a nerf, which they probably needed because their stats were a little crazy. Scurry Dogs got a little bit of a buff. I don't find these particularly impactful. Mournguls getting speed and terror is pretty nice. So now they have a pretty mobile source of terror. So I think this is a nice change to this unit where we can move it in and out. The ROR, maybe this Chilling Aura is not going to be that impactful, but it's still, it's better than it was before because it has everything that it had before, but now it has an extra thing. And then I'm really curious to see the Salastra's Rotting Leviathan and just the Rotting Leviathan in general, because now it has collision attacks. So if this becomes busted, so they've done 2 changes, and I think this is one thing that I would warn against, is making 2 changes in the same direction and having an ambiguous amount of impact from both of them. So this could be a huge combination, and maybe Silastra becomes like super OP. But I think that's still to be seen. It's still too early to say that for sure. So I'm excited to see how it pans out. So we just got a lot of like little buffs across the way, and I think this will be enough to put the faction. Cannon's got a little buff. Damn Questing Knights have gotten a little buff. I think this should be enough to put this faction higher up the list. I'm not going to say that this is going to be enough to fix the problems of Vampire Coast, but kind of like the other vampires, this is a really good reason to try out this faction more, and really put some more time into seeing if this stuff is pretty impactful. So it seems like a good place for Coast, a good place for counts, and we'll have to see. Time will have to tell if it's super impactful. Hopefully Soul Grinders. Okay, so let's just go up to the top. Tzeentch. Kind of a mixed bag here. Some nerfs, some buffs. I would say most of this feels, buff here, nerf here, some small buffs to Chaos Warriors. So I would say this stuff feels a little nerf here. I would say Tzeentch is probably... Oh, and this is pretty exciting, the Exalted Pinks. So I don't think Tzeentch is going to be... I think Tzeentch will remain a strong faction. I don't know if Tzeentch will... be knocked out of one of the strongest factions, but I think Tzeentch will continue to be a very strong faction, especially because there's nothing in here about the Centaurs. Tomb Kings, I think this faction is another one of the ones that was kind of like already in mid-tier, and this set of buffs might be enough to put it into the upper tier, because we have quite a lot of buffs. Again, it's like when you buff across the board, it looks much more attractive. The biggest buffs are probably... so again, a lot of the lords got decreased. Heroes got their cost buff, and this stuff could be impactful. But I'm just looking forward to the amount of diversity that it brings. This is, in my opinion, not a good change because Necrotechs were already a little bit busted with their blinded item, so now they can probably bring it a little bit cheaper. But yeah, we see pretty much almost buffs across the board. Like archers get buffed. We have the Necro Sphinx get buffed. Tomb Scorpion gets buffed, probably not impactful, but this is probably much more impactful. This might be quite a lot of extra. It doesn't look like a buff because it's just like a +4 bonus versus infantry. But Upshapti weren't particularly good at this role, which was their primary role, and it's a very important role for the Tomb Kings to have. So though this buff doesn't look substantial, this could be really impactful for increasing the damage output of Upshapti, because it's not only is it +4 bonus versus infantry to weapon strength, but it's also +4 to melee attack when fighting infantry. So this could be quite substantial. And then it'd be nice, these units were not useful before, so it's really interesting to see if these buffs to these two constructs, it puts them into the viable category. And if it does, these buffs plus the Ushabti buffs, plus some of these other like minor buffs across the board, might be enough to it's probably not impactful, probably enough to put them into a category of where they're performing better than they were before. But still too early, because some of this prediction is just based on how effective these collision attacks and max entities impact the large things. So the Empire, nerf. We got some nerfs to the engineers, some nerfs to the long rifles, a little bit of a nerf to the Knights of the Black Rose. That's one of the special ones. We have mostly recruitment cost and ammo changes to both the land ship and the steam tank. I'm gonna say that, and they increased its entities here, which might make a big difference. I'm gonna say this is enough to maybe bump Empire out of super top tier. However, they could very well still be comfortably at the top of the lists of things. So there are a lot of little nerfs across the board that might be sufficient. So it's quite possible Empire has found its place back in the middle. Okay, my favorite and what I'm absolutely going to play tomorrow in turns, SFT, Slaanesh. Slaanesh got buffs, and I like anything that buffs Slaanesh because I love Slaanesh. So this is cool. I have no idea which units it affects, but it's cool that all of them have it. Everything's a little bit faster in the trees. They don't take terrain penalties. Great. Nikari got buffed. Exalted Keeper of Secret got buffed. Demon Prince got buffed. All of my favorite lords got buffed. Not that this is my favorite lord. This could be cool. I did a little bit of testing with this unit. It didn't do a ton of damage, but it wasn't not worth it. This could be cool. Alluruses do have some niche. Their AP relatively large melee attack. So this could be helpful. But it's nice to just see them get a buff. This is actually a pretty substantial cost buff too. The War Shrine with the Cultist on it got buffed. The regular War Shrine got buffed. Chaos Warriors got buffed. The Hell Scourges got nerfed. I think this is probably a good change, but it's sad that it happened because this unit is so cool. But I think this probably evens it out, honestly. It just makes it a little bit more of a decision about, okay, am I actually going to do I need the Chaos Warriors? Do I need the Hell Scourges? And I think players already should have been making those choices. But now that it's a much more substantial, there's 150 gold difference between the two, I think we're going to see a lot more of these. Forsaken got buffed, cool. Chosen got nerfed, blah. Marauder Horsemen got little buffs. Hellstriders got buffed. So that was one of the most exciting parts of this patch for me. I think when I read this, I cheered a little bit because this unit was outperformed by the Hell Scourges for very long times. You almost always just wanted to bring the Hell Scourges. Maybe this is enough. We'll have to see. But I am so much looking forward to trying to use this unit again. And the one that I'm the most excited about here is Secret Chariots. That the Secret Chariots, or sorry, not the Secret Chariots, although that is cool. Oh, sorry, these are Seekers, not Secret Chariots. Seekers getting buffed is very strong for Slaanesh because this unit is actually pretty good. But still very squishy, so it's it probably doesn't not deserve this price. But it is a substantial buff to the faction because this is the the best AP cav on the game, or sorry, on the roster. And then some small changes to Chaos Furies, small nerfs to Chaos Furies, probably good for everybody. But what I'm most excited, I'm most excited about the Fiends. This is a really big buff to Fiends. Fiends were not great before, but if they're 30% better because they have, if they're like 33% better because they have 4 more models and almost, 1,600 more health, this unit might completely change the faction. Kind of like Gorgers when Gorgers went from 16 to 12. So I'm so excited for the changes that Slaanesh have. Are they going to be impactful? Is Slaanesh going to be a top tier faction? Almost definitely not. I don't think the faction got enough to put it up there. Is it going to be really fun and maybe have a couple broken units for a short period of time? Also maybe. So that's what I'm really looking forward to. My favorite faction potentially getting a little bit broken. Skaven, I think that Skaven got mostly buffs with Storm Vermin getting pretty large buffs, both kinds of Storm Vermins. I mean, the cost increased, but I think it's an overall buff with a huge leadership bonus. I think this makes these 2 units way more viable. It'll be interesting to see, but just having like a lot of little buffs here and there. Gutter Runners got buffed. I think these units were already probably okay. They were already pretty good, but having these buffs probably make them a little bit more viable, which I think is nice. Rattling Gunners, again, I thought they were okay. Maybe there's some bugs with them, but some little improvements here. This, not enough. This unit still does nothing. But the Hell Pit getting the collision attacks and maybe having an ambiguous change, more bonus versus large, more damage. This could be huge. Doomflayers also becoming like proper chariots. Super exciting. So Skaven, big pluses. I would say this faction probably is now more viable. They'll still struggle in Dom because of leadership, but they have a lot more options now, and these little changes might be enough to put them over the top. Ogres, they didn't get anything. Why did Ogres get nothing? Now they can get knocked down and they get up a little faster. No, so Ogres will probably get bigger updates in the next patch, so we can just hold our horses for now. Nurgle. Tamercland, he is a lot faster now, which is awesome, and he's really heavy. I think that's fantastic. I don't know if that makes any difference, but that's really cool. It's kind of fun. Kugath, this is probably for the land, more of a change for land battles. He's not particularly good in Dom. I think we'll just see Exalted unclean ones now instead of Kugath. Demon Princess got a little cheaper. War Shrines, blah blah blah. Furies decreased. Spawn decreased. Chaos Warriors slight increases. Marauder Horsemen slight increases, etc. Plague Ogres ambiguous. Ambiguous changes. Pox Riders a little bit. This is a positive change, and the Soul Grinder got a little bit of a buff. I think Nurgle will be practically exactly the same. I don't think we'll feel much these differences, and I think Nurgle's in a good spot, so I don't think that's a big deal. Norsca, Wolfric's a little better. I think that's nice. Wolfric. Oh, it's just Wolfric on his mounts, not regular Wolfric or Wolfric on his horse. So, sure, that's great. Famir might have gotten pretty substantial buffs. Famir always felt like they underperformed their stats anyways, so maybe their stats being better is not going to really do that much. But it's nice that they're getting a little bit of love. Feral mammoths, I don't think this is going to be enough to make them better. I don't think any of these mammoths will still be that, will get that much better. But because we don't know what this actually does yet, I think there's still a possibility. So, long story short, Norsca, probably about the same. Maybe a little better, about the same. Lizardmen. Okay, Lizardmen, I think, will prove to have gotten the most busted buff. Like, I think they, hands down, will have gotten the one that makes it, that breaks this game and points out where the collision and the splash attacks thing went wrong. All of this stuff, great. We're making things cheaper, making a little bit more viability, hopefully, for these lords. Great. Carnosaurs, maybe substantially better. Steganons, reworked for some reason. I don't know how that's going to be impactful. The one that I think is going to break the game, basically, collision attacks on Dreadsaurians. Not only that, increasing what they say this should be a buff. So, Dreadsaurians, Shredder of Lustria. Shredder of Lustria is already my favorite unit in the game, and it does insane damage. This is like the most expensive thing, and it's already doing incredible amounts of damage. Let's just increase its melee defense. Let's increase its armor, and then let's give it collision attacks. I think this is going to be amazing. Amazing in a terrible way, but I am going to have so much fun abusing this. Collision attacks on a Shredder of Lustria. I'm just imagining, it's probably not going to work out like this, but I'm imagining a Shredder of Lustria that just like one-shots a Marauder or takes off half health of a Marauder, like the like a Stonehorn can, which is probably also already has collision attacks. I'm just imagining just one shot. It basically already one shots will half health a Marauder unit. I'm just expecting it to just plow through things like that. I'm really looking forward to messing around with this unit, and it probably will point out some major issues with the changes that they've made. Will Lizardmen on whole be that much better because of this one unit? Maybe. Perhaps not. But the Dreadsaurian, the feral one, was already pretty cheap. I mean, relatively speaking, for its like damage profile. So it could be that this is impactful, especially combined with all these other things. But probably not going to be a huge difference outside of that. And so Kislev, we got tiny buff to Griffin Legion. Armored costs are continue to be nerfed into oblivion, with both less missile damage. I wonder if now basically they've become just a unit to hold, where they're like, they're not really providing much damage. Streltsy got a buff, small nerf. A buff that I think this is miswritten. It should be the Elemental Incarnate. So a small buff for that. I think that's fine, and a nerf for Little Grom. I think this is enough. Honestly, I always felt that like if we fixed Little Grom, then at least we could then limit the number of Griffin Legion. I think after all of this, Kislev will stay a strong faction. This might be enough to bump them out of the top tier. Might be. But it'd be interesting to see, and I think this is something that I welcome the most, because I think the Little Groms were silly. I think they were just too strong. And this is actually a really substantial nerf for the Little Grom. They didn't nerf it to oblivion, so it's still useful, but it's not. So Kislev, fingers crossed, is in a better place. Probably will still be strong, but maybe not top tier. Khorne. We have Khorne. Big lump with knobs. If you know, you know. I'm looking forward to Gorby's chariots. Maybe they make these better, maybe not. Everything else seems pretty insubstantial. Khorne, probably slightly worse overall, but pretty much unchanged. This is a nice change, so that's one pretty big thing. So maybe Khorne will be slightly better, but about the same. High Elves. Tyrion, not Tyrion, the one with the Mistwalker barrage, on the mount. That lord, whose name I can now not remember, has gotten better again, and I think this is all fine. I think these are all good. This is a good change for domination, but I think this will be really big. Again, this is very similar to this solves a problem that High Elves have had for a while, which is that they lose pretty strongly in their cav game. They don't have particularly strong cav, but now Fireborn will be really strong. So it's just one unit. Hard to say, but this might just very well become an auto take in most matchups, because big bonus versus large and AP should make a big difference. It's very hard to shut down cav that are AP armored, and they've kind of like now become a profile that's similar to Boar Boys and what made Boar Boys so strong. Greenskins, mostly, I would say mostly. So I guess overall High Elves, maybe a little bit better, maybe not bottom tier, but maybe not enough to. Yeah, I'd say probably mid-tier, honestly, with the Fireborn. I think that's going to make a big difference. Okay, so in Greenskins, we have mostly minor changes, maybe increasing a little bit more of the lords and heroes and their mounts, which I think should be good for the faction overall. Maybe encourage people to actually start picking up some different units, which should be really nice. Mostly buffs here, so this is buffing Greenskins in a way that they haven't really gotten buffs before, which is sort of like little things. We have a little bit better chariots. I can't remember if this is the missile chariot, but I'm looking forward to seeing if this is enough to make the Ragnarok spider better. It's 20%. Maybe not that much. 15-20% buff in terms of its melee damage. Hopefully that'll be enough. Rogue Idols, I don't think this is going to be incredibly impactful, but it might. These things are still pretty expensive. So Greenskins, probably still mid-tier. Probably still mid-tier after their last series of nerfs. They might get bigger buffs and more units into the next patch, and they might be put into a better spot, but for now they seem to be pretty solidly mid-tier. Cathay, I just feel like Cathay has been done kind of dirty. I think Cathay has been struggling for a long time, and they get balanced around land battle, which is fine, but I think it just means that they're just not really viable for domination. And I know some people do still use Cathay, and they do well with them, but with a 10% nerf to basically the one unit that you need to have all of every game, and Satan got pretty nerfed. It seems like now he can't kill infantry because of this explosion radius thing. And I don't think that Jade Warriors getting cheaper the halberds offsets the regular getting more expensive. So I think what happened was we took kind of a lower tier faction, and we didn't do very much to it. If anything, we nerfed it a little bit. So maybe mid to lower tier, and now I think it will be probably still lower tier. And then dwarfs. These guys, stout people. I have no idea. My favorite lord got buffed, so that's great. These are important. Are they impactful? I don't know. These are all pretty necessary. The lords are cheaper. That's great. We can now use more lords. Even still, the lords it was not easy to do. Thanes got better. And then AP units got better. So these were good changes. They were things that the dwarves needed. Is it going to be enough to change much about the dwarves? Perhaps not. I think these two are nice. We'll see if bolt throwers actually do make a difference. This is probably too expensive for them, if I had to guess. And then the gyros getting their missile. This may or may not make a big difference, but it's probably a good spot for them to have. And then the Thunder Barge. Does the Thunder Barge is it enough to make the Thunder Barge viable in multiplayer? Who knows? I think we'll have to see. We'll have to continue to do more testing. I suspect it's blunderbuss shooting is going to make it not so still far too strong. But we'll have to see. It might not be the case. So dwarves, I think dwarves will still be a strong faction. I don't think that this is enough to bump them out of kind of what I believe them to be, which is sort of upper tier. But we will see. Dark Elves, Malice Darkblade, got a nerf? Sure. Malekith should be exciting. Malekith got buffs, so maybe you'll actually see something other. Again, a little bit more diversity, and I love that they've put in effort to make more diversity happen. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that goes. This was saying the Scourge Runner Chariot have been rebalanced. I don't know exactly what that is, but I hope that Scourge Runners are better again, because they were a pretty cool unit in Warhammer 2. The Bloodrack Medusa, I really hope this is enough. I am probably the most vocal critic of the Medusa, because I've seen this unit get like 4k value. I don't think any unit in this game that costs like 2k or less should be able to easily get 4k value, and I've seen it do it in multiple games. So hoping this is enough. Damage, it sounds like they didn't change much about its damage, but they did change its the speed at which it shoots. So hopefully that is enough. Dark Elves overall, probably about the same. Probably still about the middle tier. I don't think the nerfs are enough to bump it out, and the buffs are probably pretty helpful, but probably not big overall. I'm not sure if the units that were changed in other factions, like, do Bloodletters now have 35% spell damage resist? Not clear how Demons of Chaos are going to change, but it's probably not big overall. And then Chaos Dwarves, one of my favorite factions. We got pretty much buffed across the board. Again, encouraging diversity of lords, encouraging diversity of mounts. These are all really nice changes, because the Taurus and the Lamassu are probably not quite viable before. Bull Centaur character got better. Castellan got a little better. Archers got a little better. Skirm Cav got better. Spear Riders got better. Chaos Dwarves got better. Great Weapons got better. Infernal Guard got better. Infernal Guard great weapons got better. Fire glaives. Okay, you get the picture. All of this. Oh, that's cool. All of this is pretty big changes, in my opinion. I think that this is going to be enough to make this this faction probably to compete with the top tier factions. Does it belong in the top tier factions? I think it's still to be determined. And then I think also that a lot of people probably disagree that Chaos Dwarves were as strong as I had felt them to be in the past. But on the other hand, I think it's because they need some very specific like touches and strategies. I will probably be playing Chaos Dwarves a lot on this patch. I think that's going to be really positive. Bretonia, minor changes. It's not even really worth mentioning. A little bit more balancing. Beastmen, this is the last one. Beastmen, nothing. Nothing. I mean, small changes almost everywhere. Maybe Cygors are good now. I hope so. Maybe this unit is even better. Maybe Gorgon is. I think this one is probably not. People don't like it in land battles, but in domination, it's not amazing. Sure. So Beastmen, maybe not a big deal. Oh wait, Gore Herds. Gore Herds got 6 extra weapon damage, so 20%, over 20%, 21%, and 5 bonus versus infantry. This could be huge. So Beastmen used to be a faction where all of the chaff infantry sucked. All of the infantry sucked. Now we have Zangors, Pestigors. We're adding Gore Herds to this mix, where Gore Herds are now going to actually be able to hold. And actually be able to do some DPS. So it seems like we've just been like filling out the niches that Beastmen can actually fill with their infantry. Is it going to be enough to put them in the very top tier? I suspect it will be. Maybe they're not super far from the pact, but I feel like they've already been really strong with the Centaur changes. So this might be enough to, these Gore Herds might be enough to put them to into that next level. Yeah, hate Slaanesh, not me. So overall, and then we can just briefly look at these. I don't think there's anything incredibly. Healing got a little bit worse. It's something that I think the land battle crew especially has been looking for. A couple balances around some spells, maybe a couple places it's been mislabeled for specific units. Fleshy Abundance got kind of nerfed. A couple good changes there. Portaglyph got a little worse. Windbow got a lot worse. Pretty much, yeah. So overall, these full power maybe got a little slower, maybe a little less heavy. Pigeon Bombs got a little worse. I think what I am waiting for here is to see if these changes are enough, especially the changes to the, where is it listed? Complex stat changes. I am holding my breath because these could really change so much about the game. So I'm going to hold off a lot of my judgment on where things land after this. But overall, this patch is massive. It's going to make a really big difference. It's hopefully going to lower the barrier of entry to new players. I think this overall, this will be really good for the game. And also really big shout out to Creative Assembly for actually working really closely with the community to get this stuff done, put it out there. But okay, so with that, I'm going to sign off. Definitely leave me any comments. I absolutely forgot things. I got to end on this. I'm going to definitely leave me comments about anything that I might have missed, because there probably were quite a lot of things that actually potentially are impactful that I just didn't see or I didn't understand. But yeah, for now, looking forward to playing with you all, and adios.